Okay, I think we're good. We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes from 9/5?
You have a motion?
Okay, Brooke and PC. We'll take yours, PC, as a second. And that is to approve them and dispense of the reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on your agenda, you'll see that it's pretty limited. We do not have any new Class 1 permits to talk about under clarifications. The permit applications that we have issued since our last meeting, we had 2 Funtown RV, they're a Class 3 out of Bryant, and Hillside Auto, the Class 3 out of Mountain View. Wendell, is that one up and running in Mountain View? Yes. Okay, you stopped by there and visited with that gentleman, and they made the trip down the hill to do it in person. And we had no territory expansions since our last meeting. Any questions concerning those permits that have been issued?
No.
Okay, and J.C. Cox also sent me a text. He was going to be here for the association. The association hired J.C. and he just went to work for them about 3 weeks ago. No, it's been longer than that. Andrea, when did we go look at the trailers?
It's been at least a month.
Okay, well, it was whenever that week was when he went to work for them. So I think that if y'all have been in the industry any length of time, you might have run into J.C. He's been had been working for AmeriGas for probably 20 years. He was a safety man. And so he took Donnie Ray's place, and he'll be attending our meetings and then be the liaison between the association and the board going forward. Okay, is there anybody here that has anything that they need to be brought before the board? If not, if you'll get your little handout, we'll go over the financial report. And so this is, the numbers you're looking at are through the end of November. So I'll remind you that the appropriation for the year was $629,571. Expenses through November, $240,935. Revenues through November, $203,478.39. And then you can see the comparison for last fiscal year. The expenses were $223,305 and $196,874. So both of those are fairly close to each other. Any questions concerning the expenses through November? I will tell you that this year we had, we've still not got this accomplished yet, but we're still working on it, and that is to replace the last 2 HVAC units. And our new CFO was over earlier this morning and visited with me and Chrissy, and we had thought to do that through the capital outlay. We have $80,000 that was appropriated for this year. But I think Chrissy, didn't Whitney indicate that she might want to try to move that money to operating expense and do it that way?
I think so.
So we will finish the HVAC project this fiscal year. Just not sure exactly how we want to, how it's best to do that. If there's not any other questions concerning the expense report, then could I have a motion to accept the expense report?
Motion, we accept the financial statement.
All right. Since he
Second.
can't. Second?
Second.
Okay. And again, I always want to remind you all, you can call and ask anytime if you have any questions. And also you can see the expenditures online at Arkansas Transparency. Okay. I want to talk to you just a little bit to let you know we've got the fiscal session will be starting in January. As part of that will be our appropriation for FY 26 and 27 biennium. And Larry, what is the proper it has went through committee.
The rules,
No, our budget, our appropriation for,
went through the first review committee.
okay. And so,
It'll go through a review committee again during the session.
okay, and then, well, they'll
That-
provide in the
that'll
form of a bill, it'll be referred to, okay.
go- Right,
All right.
that'll go for vote in the legislature.
So the next phase of our appropriation for the next fiscal year will be in the form of a bill and work through the legislature. And just want to let you know of some changes that will be on that appropriation bill. We're asking for an increase of $40,000 in operating expense. We have always been right on the line. I was just visiting with Chrissy about this earlier in the week, and it looks like we're okay this year, but we always get really close, and working with Larry Bingle, we went ahead and increased the O2 or the operating expense by 40 grand that we're asking for in the next appropriation. We also asked for $30,000 in the form of grant that we can issue for training to the association. And that will be a yearly event. Larry, will that happen yearly or every? Yeah, it'll happen every budget if we leave it in there in the form of a grant.
Right, it's in for 2 years for sure.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Then we have to go get it. Okay. So for sure, it will be in the 26 fiscal year and the 27 fiscal year. So I think that's a good thing. We also asked, and that 30,000 came out of the 80,000 that we had in capital. We're asking to leave 50,000 remaining in capital outlay. And we need to go ahead and start replacing the inspector's pickups. I think that are all of you now close to 200,000?
194.
Maybe not Terry, but
188.
188 and 194. And we got those in 2019? Is that right? 20. All right, so they're 4 years old. We typically have replaced them all three at once. The cost of the vehicles now, we probably bought all three with what's going to cost to buy one now. But we'll replace those one at a year going forward. So, and then we asked for $2,000 to be reallocated from conference and travel. I've not spent hardly any of that money since being with the agency, and move that to professional fees. And this will allow us to use it for different things. We've got our scanning project that we got going on now. And we're using extra help at the present time to do that. But this could be a possibility of using the professional fees to pay for stuff like that, as opposed to using extra help, because there's some limitations there. So those are really the four changes we've got. Our current appropriation is 629,000. With those changes for 26, the appropriation ask is 719, and then in 27 it'll be 721. And that 721, the difference in 26 and 27 is probably just salary increases if they happen to be there. Went through that pretty quick. Are there any questions concerning our moving forward, our appropriation, and what we're looking to do with our budget over the course of the next 2 years?
I think you were pretty clear in the way you described it.
Okay, all right, thank you, ma'am. We're right in the middle of renewals. I want to bring everybody up to speed on where we are. I'll just run through the classifications real quick. Our class 1 permits, we have renewed 32 of 46, and not going to name anybody by name, but it could be that we have some board members that we've not received your renewal yet. Just wanted to point that out. But we have received 32 of the 46. Class 2, we've received 16 of the 23. And when I say that's last year's number. Class 3s, we had 311 last year. So far, we have processed 218. Class 4s, we only have 5. 3 of those have come in. Class 7, we just have one, and the Class 7, we didn't utilize for years. And then Central Bus wanted to dispense only motor fuel, and that's what a Class 7 is. So we set it back up, and Terry, you took care of that, didn't you, over there? Okay. And so they've already renewed. Class 8, 7 of 11 have. Class 9s, 5, last year it was 10. And Class 10s, 8 of 9. And then I think I left out Class 5s or transporters. 33, we've had 33 that have renewed so far, and we had 56 last year. So, we're first week of December. We typically, and so we're at 68% of the permits that we issued last year have renewed. And I think by the end of the December, we'll probably get pretty close to everybody. We always have between 20 and 40 Class 3s that we've got to contact and, but I feel like we're in pretty good shape, don't y'all? In compared to what we've been in years past. All right,
Is that a pretty standard number going into December?
It is.
A little bit above.
Yeah, we might be a little bit ahead of where we typically are, but it's close. It's close. We'll end up, before it's all said and done, issuing, somewhere 550 permits, something like that. But most all Class 1s, and, we mail them out in September. All of our Class 1s, they know they're going to do it, but so they get it in September, they put it on the desk, and then hopefully it gets cold and things get crazy, and then somebody will say, hey, did you ever renew our permit? And, and then they'll take care of it. Not going to name any names. Okay, I think everybody got the notification of our 2 rules that you all voted to or acted on. The orphan tank, or the asset out of service rule, and the distance adopting pamphlet 58 distance rules. Those 2 have been properly promulgated, and as of the 18th or 28th of November. Charlie, do you remember what that date was? Pete sent it out, but it's one of those 2. Those 2 became enforceable. So I really appreciate the board's help in working on that. And I know it was a long, drawn out affair. But I think our consumers we'll be able to help out our consumers a lot because of the work you all have done. And so those rules are in effect as we speak. And then, Lauren, have we heard anything on our current ask for 58? Have we heard anything back from?
And we are, any day now, I should hear something. So I have not had the official go ahead, but I should be able to update you.
Okay, thank you. 2 or 3, it's been a little longer. I can't remember if it was the first meeting of the year or the second. We talked about, and you all voted to move forward with or considering adopting 58 in totality. And that request, Lauren has put it in a request to the governor's office, and they're going to review it. And when we hear back on that, and hopefully we'll hear back in time that could be put in the form of a bill for this legislative session. But we'll keep everybody appraised of what's going on that front. Any questions about any of that we just went over?
The paint's dry.
Paul, did you say thanks something?
I said the paint's dry.
Oh, the paint is dry. I understand.
I'm sorry.
No,
I
you're
was
good.
though.
Okay. So the last thing that I have is we're at the last meeting of the calendar year, and we need to install our officers for next year. And I think everybody agreed, long time ago, that we would rotate board members based on when they started serving. And so Drew Kraft is next in line to serve as chair for 2026 or 5, and then Brooke would be in line as our vice chair. So I would ask that we put this in the form of a motion to accept Drew as our chair for next year and for Brooke to be our vice chair for next year.
Move that these be accepted.
Thank you, David. Paul, you want to second that? It's awkward if you
second
make
that.
one of them second it. Okay, thanks. All right, we got a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion
Nay.
carried. All right, thank you all. And we have the plaque for Terry, but talking to Drew earlier this morning, and we'll just hang on to it until our next meeting, if you all are good with that, and we'll just present it to him at that time.
Thank y'all for agreeing to service.
Pardon, Paul?
I said, thank you. Thank those for agreeing to serve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Appreciate that very much. Okay. Is there anything else that anybody has?
Director, I've got one.
Yes,
I
sir.
want to get into the issue of duplicate decals.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Keisha brought this to our attention and need to get you all's input on this. You know, the board moved to invoke a statute that allows us to suspend inspection fees, that is the decal, right? We don't charge for decals, we charge for the inspection. We're not charging for the inspections now. So all the transporters, and most of these are out of state, they have found out, since we're not charging, we'll just get all 100 of our trailers, or however many trailers they own, decaled. Because it's not costing us anything, which logistically that makes sense, because if you got a transport over here that wasn't decaled, and it would be quicker for them to grab a load, let's say in Tulsa, and come into the state. Well, before, if you were paying for that, that might be
Deterrent.
yeah. And so with everything decaled, it doesn't matter. They can just move them around, right? So what happens is they'll ask for all these decals, and we'll send them to them. And now we've gotten, I would say it's increased 100, I don't know, 100%. We used to always have a handful of decals that would get lost, or they'd get washed off the trailers or something like that, and we'd just send them another one. Well, now it is
Every week.
Yeah, it's every week, and it is several of them. And while we, want to support the board's decision and no fees, it is getting a little bit out of hand with these replacement decals. So here's the question. We don't charge them when we send them a decal. If they ask for a replacement, does the board have issues with us charging them for that decal? And when I say charging for the decal, we're not charging them the $150. We'll just be covering the cost of the decal, which, what are those, Chrissy? $2 a piece?
That's not. How much does it cost to mail them?
We've got a $5 penalty fee already in place. Oh, I thought we did.
Yeah.
What's the mailing, Keisha? How much does it cost you to mail those decals?
$2.
I would suggest, obviously it's up to the board's prerogative, but I would suggest any kind of a duplicate or replacement decal also include the cost of the postage. But I would also suggest that staff notify everybody that they are planning on doing this through some sort of a letter.
Sure.
Or an email or something, so people aren't caught by surprise that, when they get a bill, an astronomical bill for probably $6 or $7 to replace their decal, that they don't pitch a fit. Looking at your statutory authority, I mean, the board has the ability from an administrative perspective to do what it needs to do to effectuate the purposes and premises in your statutory authority. This seems like it would fall into that. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a state agency, but you're not a charity. So it would be really nice if there was a specific rule or a specific statute that says you could charge for a duplicate decal along with postage. But It's not in the rule or it's not in the statute. Of course, on the flip side, it doesn't say that you can't either. So I would just lay that up for the board and for the board's consideration.
Can you help me understand why we wouldn't just charge for every decal? And maybe that's, maybe I'm not seeing it, but if it's a $5 cost, that seems negligible.
It is, and it has to do with, when you voted to suspend.
Mhm.
And so the charge was never on the decal. It was on the inspection.
Right,
So we would charge for the inspection. It's $150 a trailer to go inspect that. And then we would put the decal on there.
right, which was included in that cost.
Right. But since we did away with that, then the decals are just sent out at no cost. And, you know, we don't have a problem with that. That fits what we're trying to do with the industry. It's just now coming back and sending additional ones, you know, and it is a negligible cost but there might be some deterrent, even though it's a minimal cost, to say, hey, what are we doing with these? What is the most that they said they got the invoice, but they didn't get the decals?
Like 20,
They were together,
they were together.
you know, so, and don't know what they're doing with them. But because there's no really skin in the game now, they don't care,
Right,
you know.
How many decals do we have printed per year? Aren't these date coded?
They are.
Like,
They are,
what's-
and we,
What's the
you know,
residual that we normally have left over? Like everybody buys calendars to give out, and you got a box of calendars in the back that's no good next year. How many of those do we typically have left over?
you know, I would say that it is less than 100. Yeah. And that's out of, we probably are sending out close to 3,000 a year
Well,
on bobtails and transports altogether.
now that
Okay,
they-
so what I foresee us having a problem with is if we get down to the last 3 or 4 months and we don't have any and having to have a reprint, or do we just overlook that from a standpoint of, hey, I don't have a sticker on the truck?
No, we don't do that.
You
We
see what I'm
will go
saying?
ahead and keep on top of that, Paul, and if we need to, we will call in order additional, and to cover.
I guess
And we might
that's,
just order a couple of hundred, you know.
I would think we're, you know, as long as that we're not just getting charged with just trying to be budget minded here, that as long as we're not just getting hammered with like a reprint fee, that's really all we're looking at is, you know, what does it cost us to have some reprinted? Because if you've been throwing 100 away anyway, that's, you know, close to getting, you know, let's say we're getting close to, you know, right at the money on that. Maybe next year, this
Yeah.
continues to be a problem, you know, bump it up 250 or whatever. But I don't see there'd be a problem. We need to make sure that we can at a glance, you know, tell whether or not a truck's registered or not.
Correct. Yeah, outside of that, okay, so Paul, what you're saying is this is, right now, you view this as kind of a non-issue because we've got some overage that will end up throwing away anyway. As long
Here's
as
what
we're
I
not
would think
having
that
to
we ought to
reorder.
make. We ought to make note if it's a chronic issue with like the same company doing it over and over and over again. And then we just almost, I won't say reprimand, we just say, look, you know, if you continue to have this issue, this is being a chronic problem. What's going on? Are the stickers falling off? Do we need to, you know, what seems to be the problem here that you guys over any of other people we service, what's the problem? But if it's sporadic, then, you know, who knows? I mean, maybe it's truly, honestly, an issue where they can't find them or whatever it may be. But
You know, that's a good point, Paul, and that could be right because as a percentage, I don't know how much it's up. There's a lot more, but because there's no charge, people that would typically we said before, that would just get 15 or 20 are now getting 100 and putting them on all their trailers. So you could be right. It's still just honest mistakes, but because of the percentages are higher,
I would
we
dare
see it.
say that would probably go down, you know, if we ever get back to charging or that becomes a a
Right.
deal, I'm sure that that's going to become a deal where, hey, now we need to do an inspection where logistics all of a sudden become tight enough that we don't do that. But
And Paul, I'm glad that you brought up that, that made me think. I had Chrissy look to see how much more we had pulled our fund down. The goal is to continue to drop that and return the money to the industry. And we looked at it, from 7/1, the start of the fiscal year, through the end of November, and it had dropped another $95,000. That's about what it dropped, right? 1.8 something to 1.7 or something. So right now, we started, when you all started and invoked this 2 years ago, we were at 2.2 mil. And right now, our fund balance is 1.172 or something like that. So it has brought it down, and we're directionally correct. It could be that you all probably have to look really close at our next June board meeting, and see if we can go another complete year and how far. And I'll get some direction from the secretary as to where we want our fund to be. I've always just considered maybe 2 years of operating as being prudent. But we'll probably, hopefully we'll get close to that. I'm hoping we can drop it another,
and
150.
if it means a company, you just think about this, if a company, let's say, had an additional 25 trailers that they needed to license and couldn't afford to do that otherwise, just think about how much more logistically they could function with those other 25 trucks on the road when we get into an allocation issue or whatever it may be, that could free up, propane in the state, because that's what we're talking about, somebody coming into the state, and we don't really have that many access points. That could really make a huge difference. So I think we're just, the stickers just cost of doing business.
Okay.
I mean, we're requiring the inspection. We got to, there's no other reason these guys aren't putting them on their refrigerators at their house.
I would
right?
agree. I would agree. Yep.
So it's not like they're getting them. And if we've had 100 in a box for the last 50 years, if we've had 100 in a box, there's really no point in just beating this to death. I'd say give them the sticker, and it's just cost of doing business.
And that 100 might be high. I don't know that we've got 100 at the end of the year. We get pretty close. We might.
Yeah, I mean,
we might, something like that. I see your point. Brooke, Drew, what do y'all think?
Charge them $5.
Okay, so Drew, you're saying charge them $5.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's pretty minimal. I see your point, Paul, but I also think $5 isn't much, and if that kind of slows that rate and pace and make sure that it's covering, you're looking at a deficit from going from 150. So you've got $145 return that they're getting back, that they were being charged for kind of the same service. So.
Okay. Mr. Remy, what do you think?
I think we ought to charge them for it to just deter it. I can't imagine why they would lose them and why they would be coming off. I don't have any problem with that in my trucks. And we take them to these washes and get them cleaned. So I say charge them the $5 and move on.
Okay. Well, we have a guest that is at the head of the table. Secretary Corey, would you like to address our discussion here and chime in?
Just want to say, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here. But, hearing this discussion, one of the things that our governor is adamant about is no new fees. And I think we went through this legislative change a couple of years ago. And the way that was worded, if I recall correctly, and just looking at it back there, was the board has the authority to suspend all fees. But in my opinion, and not to disagree with Judge Moulton, is a legal interpretation, but from a policy interpretation, the governor is absolutely against any new fees that haven't been completely vetted and approved. And generally, I don't know of any new fees so far that we've been allowed to impose. So My only concern and caution would be that for us not to do this at this point in time until we fully vetted that, because I think even it is a reimbursement of a piece that you're suspending, it could be construed as a new fee because the board has not historically charged for replacement decal based on what I'm hearing today. So
That's
my
true.
request would be not to do that today. If that's something the board is truly interested in doing, and at this point in time, we can thoroughly vet that and have that discussion. But my experience with the governor's office and our policy of no new fees, it kind of seems a little bit like you may be crossing that line at this point in time.
Okay, and I think that it could be. I mean, it's not something we've done before.
I mean, I'm not saying we don't legally have the authority. That's not my argument. My
Sure.
argument is that our governor, this administration has a policy against new fees. So
Okay,
Maybe that makes more sense, and thank you for that insight and information, that we would then sort of table this until we reevaluate with the next 2-year cycle.
and we could also table it, and we keep our eye on it. If it becomes then I can go to the secretary and say, this is getting out of hand, and then get some more input. And then if it doesn't, it doesn't, it's not an issue.
Sounds good.
All right, you good with that? Mr.
Yes.
David or Mr. P, Paul?
Oh, I'm fine with any of it.
Gotcha.
We all have our opinions. I have no problem with any of it.
Okay, all right. But thank you, Charlie. I had asked that you remind me of that because I knew I would forget. Thank you, Secretary, for the input. Okay. Does anybody have anything else that we need to address or at this time? I do appreciate you all and your dedication and being here and participating. And because I know the pay is not fantastic, being a board member. And it does take away from your families and the time to be here, but it's important. And, we got a great industry. If we do not see you all again or speak to you, I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas and can spend time with your family. If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay, Ms. Brooke, would you like to second that since he can't hear?
Yeah.
All right, very good. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you all. Y'all have a good rest of the day.
Thanks, guys, gals. Thank you.
thank you.